Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're really cutting through the noise, looking at a whole stack of sources you've shared on a really critical topic, U.S.-India relations.
Yeah, and it's not just the usual diplomatic talk, is it?
Not at all. Our mission today is, well, it's pretty specific. We're exploring a really bold, multi-pronged strategy for the U.S. in how it deals with India. And we're looking at this especially through the lens of a potential second Trump term.
Right. So sources seem very focused on that angle.
Exactly. It's not just about diplomacy for diplomacy's sake. It's about making deals that really count, deals that maximize American interests. The core idea, really, is how the U.S. can turn the world's largest democracy into, well, America's strategic advantage.
A huge goal.
It is. So we'll cover quite a bit: trade dynamics, the global flow of talent, and exactly how the U.S. can leverage India's rise. So if you're looking for those aha moments, the kind that make complex stuff clear, you're definitely in the right place. We aim to get you well informed quickly.
And what's really fascinating here, looking at the source material, is how unfiltered it is. It gives this raw look at the dynamic. It strongly suggests, I think, that a successful U.S. strategy can't just, react to India's external image, the shiny rising giant story.
The official narrative.
Exactly. It has to be built on understanding India's internal contradictions, its vulnerabilities, things that often get overlooked. We're going to dig into how India is actually seen as, well, unfair, and not just by outsiders, but crucially by its own citizens. The sources even talk about lies and double standards in India's political narrative. It's pretty strong stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And all this analysis, it leaks to this really intriguing, maybe even audacious proposal. The idea is to actively attract India's best talent, its entrepreneurs, directly to the U.S. So our aim today is to pull out the key insights for a strategy that's not just about handshakes, but about tangible monetary gains, stronger global influence, and ultimately long-term stability for the United States.
That's a powerful setup. It immediately shifts the focus from, the usual headlines we hear constantly about India's booming economy, right? The world's fastest growing economy.
It's the standard line.
But these sources, they paint a starkly different picture, like really jarringly different, about how things actually work on the ground. And it's not just about, say, foreign companies struggling there. It's about the daily reality for India's own people.
That's the crucial distinction.
Yeah. One of the most striking arguments is that India isn't just protectionist towards the world, shielding its industries. It's described as punitive, unfair to its own citizens.
Punitive, that's a strong word.
It is. The sources explicitly say it's a nation charging developed world taxes, but giving back developing world infrastructure, services, and quality of life.
Yeah.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah.
So it makes you ask, what are these internal contradictions creating this gap? Let's start unpacking those.
Absolutely. And the first thing that just jumps out, it really sets the tone, is this huge imbalance between the heavy taxes people pay and, frankly, how little they get back in public services.
Okay.
Our sources point out that India's top earners, especially the urban middle class, the growing professional class, they face some of the highest marginal tax rates in Asia. We're talking effective rates often breaking 40%, maybe even higher once you add income tax, various surcharges, and these things called cesses.
Cesses, like extra taxes for specific things.
Exactly, like for education or infrastructure. But the sources claim the benefits are rarely, if ever, seen directly by the people paying. Now, you'd think with taxes that high, you'd get decent public services, right? Good roads, reliable power.
So you would expect that, yeah.
But the reality described is just one of constant frustration. Picture this: navigating broken roads in major cities, potholes everywhere, crippling traffic jams. A 20-minute drive turns into 2 hours.
Right. Just basic infrastructure failing.
Precisely. And it's often due to, well, a lack of urban planning, chronic underinvestment. Then you have unpredictable power cuts, sometimes for hours, even in big cities. It hits homes, businesses, water shortages too, a recurring nightmare in many places. People end up relying on expensive private water tankers.
So even the absolute basics are unreliable.
Pretty much. And beyond utilities, think about the general environment. Overflowing garbage on the streets, poor sanitation, a real lack of civic accountability for basic hygiene. And then there's the corruption. It's described as chronic, pervasive, at almost every level when you interact with public services.
Like what?
Getting a driver's license, registering property, huge hassles. Even getting a passport often involves navigating this maze of, let's call them, unofficial payments, just to get things done.
Bureaucratic hurdles everywhere.
And the legal system, it's choked, a massive backlog of cases. Justice isn't just delayed, it can take decades, if it comes at all. So all this creates this deeply frustrating, almost cynical, pay high, live low reality for the Indian taxpayer. Leads to huge frustration, disillusionment.
That paints a picture of just a constant, draining uphill battle for ordinary citizens, just trying to live, let alone get ahead.
Exactly. It's exhausting. And this feeling of instability, it extends right into the financial system, which our sources call remarkably unstable, precarious for the average person.
How so? Unstable banks.
Well, public sector banks, they dominate the landscape. Like almost 70% of banking, they're described as being riddled with bad loans, crony lending, and undercapitalization. So it's not just inefficiency. They're fundamentally vulnerable, often operating without rigorous risk management.
That affects ordinary people directly.
Absolutely. Depositor protection is alarmingly low. Only $5 lakh, that's roughly, $6,000 is insured per depositor per bank.
$6,000, that's it.
That's it. It's cited as among the lowest in major economies. So if a bank goes under, a big chunk of someone's life savings could just vanish overnight. Financially devastating. And we've seen this happen. Frequent collapses of these shadow banks, NBFCs, and rural cooperative banks, leaving ordinary people, often with modest savings, completely high and dry.
That's terrifying.
It is. And even if you try to do something simple, like send your own money abroad for your kids' education, or a business investment, it's tightly monitored, heavily scrutinized by the central bank under this liberalized remittance scheme, the LRS. It means navigating this relentless gauntlet of red tape, paperwork, intense scrutiny for things that should be straightforward.
So more bureaucracy.
Constant red tape. The message it sends, unspoken perhaps, is your money isn't entirely yours and your safety net is incredibly thin. It breeds distrust in the official system.
So it's not just government failing on services, but also failing to secure people's actual wealth. And I imagine this must spill over into trying to run a business.
Oh, absolutely. Big time. India's business environment for both local and foreign companies is described as a maze of outdated rules and unpredictable enforcement.
Like what kind of rules?
Think complex, archaic labor codes. Makes hiring, firing really difficult. Discourages formal jobs. Then you have overlapping tax jurisdictions, state versus central government. Creates administrative nightmares. Businesses spend more time on compliance than on, innovation. And there's this lingering license Raj mentality. A legacy thing. Means you still need endless permits, licenses, approvals for everything. Often involves delays, arbitrary demands, opportunities for, let's say, unofficial payments.
The corruption again.
It stifles entrepreneurship, both local and foreign, because you spend so much time, energy, money just navigating the bureaucracy instead of building your business. Foreign companies face unique issues too. Sudden policy U-turns, rules change without warning. Some have even faced retroactive taxation, taxing past earnings, creates huge uncertainty, undermines confidence.
Retroactive taxes, that sounds incredibly risky for investors.
It is. Plus, state governments have a lot of power locally. Leads to conflicting rules, inconsistent enforcement, depends heavily on which state you're in. So despite the headlines about world's fastest growing economy and ease of doing business, the sources stress that India still scores poorly on actually doing business at the local level, and that's where it counts.
Right. On paper, looks good. In practice, a different story. Exhausting, unpredictable. And beyond the economy and bureaucracy, what about the social fabric? How do these tensions play out day to day?
That's another critical layer. Often sensitive, often overlooked, the sources tackle it head on. The deep-rooted caste system, despite laws against it, still significantly influences things like education access, jobs, marriage, even politics. Meritocracy, the idea that talent gets rewarded, often takes a back seat, either to reservation politics, affirmative action, which causes its own tensions and debates about fairness, or just simple dynastic influence. Who your family is matters more than what you can do.
Connections over competence.
Often, yes. So the experience for even the urban, upper middle class, educated, aspirational people is one of constant tension. They navigate religious tensions, the real threat of communal violence erupting. They're surrounded by institutional inefficiency. Everything just feels like it doesn't work properly. Transport, courts, whatever. And there's little real hope for deep systemic reform. It feels stuck.
So people feel trapped.
Yeah, and many successful people, they retreat into these high-security gated communities. It's not just housing, it's like an attempt to privatize what the government fails to deliver. Cleanliness, security, reliable utilities, basic order. It paints this picture of citizens caught between rigid bureaucracy and an unpredictable political class.
Okay, so let's piece this together. Heavy taxes, poor services, unstable finances, suffocating red tape, social tensions, caste issues. What's the bottom line here? It sounds like India's protectionism isn't just about economics.
Exactly. It's a symptom, a systemic symptom of deeper dysfunction. That's what the sources argue. By shielding itself from global competition, from external scrutiny, India also shields its internal failures from accountability.
Makes sense. No pressure to fix things.
Right. And these dysfunctions just fester. The real tragedy here, and the sources convey this sense of loss, is that the very policies meant to keep out foreign competition also, maybe unintentionally, keep Indian citizens locked in a box of limited choices, too much regulation, and stifled ambition. It's a system that, in many ways, works against the very people it claims to protect. It holds back India's undeniable potential.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, these internal struggles aren't just domestic issues. They must impact how India engages with the world, right? And specifically how the U.S. should approach things.
Precisely. Which brings us to the next critical point. The sources hammer home the stark difference between the political narrative, the stories politicians tell, and the actual ground reality. Our sources bluntly call this India's lies and double standards.
Okay, let's unpack that. The Indian Prime Minister often talks about farmers, fishermen, right? Calls them annadata, food providers, praises their contribution.
Yes, the rhetoric is powerful, very evocative.
But the sources suggest a huge gap between that talk and the reality for those same people.
Yeah.
And what's really striking is, apparently, even his own supporters kind of see this disconnect.
Yes, the disconnect is described as profound and tragic. The farmer suicide crisis is maybe the starkest example. Over 300,000 farmers have committed suicide in the last 2 decades, thousands more every year. This isn't just isolated incidents. It's described as a structural collapse of their way of life, driven by debt, volatile prices, lack of support.
300,000, that's staggering.
It is. And yet, when farmers held one of the largest peaceful protests ever, camping outside Delhi for months, facing terrible conditions, the Prime Minister, according to these sources, ignored them, refused to engage meaningfully, and let the movement be dragged through mud by state propaganda. Their pleas were met with silence, or worse, smear campaigns.
So who does benefit from the government's farm policies then, if not the actual farmers?
That's where it gets really cynical, according to the sources. The real beneficiaries are often politically connected, wealthy landowners, people who cleverly exploit the system. They call themselves farmers to dodge income tax, using a loophole meant for small cultivators. They get huge agricultural loans, knowing they can likely get them waived through political connections. These aren't struggling farmers. Some own hundreds of acres. They use farming status as a shield for black money, laundering illicit gains into seemingly legitimate farm income.
So it's a loophole for the rich and connected.
That's the argument. While the government claims to protect the small farmer, in truth, it protects the elite who exploit the farming system. Meanwhile, the real farmers are described as hanging from trees, buried in debt, broken by false hope. It's a brutal indictment.
Incredibly powerful and deeply disturbing. It highlights a moral failure, not just economic, sacrificing the vulnerable for the elite. What about corruption more broadly? Always a big concern.
The sources are exceptionally blunt here. They argue, and this is a direct quote again, that in India today, corruption is not a crime. It's a qualification for power.
Wow.
A qualification. That's the claim. It suggests the rule of law is fundamentally undermined. We see examples cited. Ministers under investigation welcomed into the ruling party, signaling that questionable pasts aren't a barrier, maybe even an asset. Major bank defaulters, people who've allegedly siphoned off huge sums, often with political ties, seem to walk free, while the financial system suffers. And big corruption scandals, often they get buried with court delays, media distractions. They fade away, perpetrators rarely held accountable, creates this culture of impunity.
And what about those who try to be honest?
Stark contrast. Honest civil servants, whistleblowers trying to expose wrongdoing, independent journalists reporting on it. They often face harassment, punitive job transfers, even direct threats. It chills dissent, chills integrity. The message seems clear. Power protects power. The rule of law becomes a tool, not a principle, used selectively. Punish opponents, protect allies. It's deeply cynical, but that's the reality depicted.
So corruption isn't just a side effect, it's woven into how power works. Almost a feature, not a bug. And how does this impact the average taxpayer, the one already paying high taxes for forced services?
It fuels this deep sense of exploitation. India's middle class, the business owners, the ones driving growth, paying taxes, creating jobs they feel used and exploited. As we said, they pay up to 42% tax, navigate endless red tape, endure harassment, and get almost nothing in return. Broken infrastructure, chaotic cities, poor healthcare, expensive education, daily hassles from government departments.
So where does their tax money actually go?
According to the sources, it goes to fund bloated subsidies, often for unproductive sectors. It funds populous schemes designed for votes, not real development. It fuels vote bank politics that keep uncompetitive industries alive, draining resources from taxpayers' ambitions. In essence, the argument is the system punishes productivity and rewards dependency. It extracts from the most productive people to sustain an inefficient, often corrupt system resistant to real reform.
What really stands out to me here from the sources is that even many supporters of the current government know this stuff. They aren't blind to the corruption, the gap between talk and reality. They feel it's run by optics, not outcomes.
Exactly. And that widespread awareness, even if it's quiet, is crucial.
Yeah, it raises that big question.
It does. This raises the really important question for U.S. strategy. Given this internal contradiction, this underlying fragility that even supporters recognize, how can the U.S. actually leverage this? People might support the government for various reasons, nationalism, lack of alternatives, hope, but they see the corruption. They see honest people struggling while the dishonest thrive. This shared, unspoken understanding, that's a potential opening.
So what does this all mean for the U.S.? The sources argue India's political economy is highly fragile beneath the surface, despite the growth narrative. And this fragility, paradoxically, offers a unique opportunity for the U.S.
Precisely. It's not about seeing India's challenges as just problems, but as strategic leverage points. The U.S. can negotiate from a position of strength if it understands these internal pain points that frustrate India's own citizens.
Yeah.
What are these points? Rampant corruption, strangling honest businesses, favoritism towards the politically connected, distorting markets, unfair taxes, stifling innovation.
And the growing anger.
Yes. The sources highlight growing middle-class anger over broken promises, widening caste and class divisions despite nationalist rhetoric. And crucially, India's regulatory state isn't some perfect machine. It's described as filled with loopholes, contradictions, and arbitrage opportunities. A savvy player, like the U.S., can understand and use these.
So instead of hitting a brick wall, the U.S. finds the cracks. How does that translate into actual strategy? Especially thinking about an America First approach.
The sources suggest several practical steps. First, the U.S. can directly demand fairness in tariffs, trade, and regulation. Not just ask politely, but demand, knowing India's own system lacks internal fairness. Pushing for external fairness highlights internal hypocrisies.
Makes sense. Use their own standards against them, in a way.
Sort of. Second, offer transparency and anti-corruption frameworks as explicit conditions for deeper partnership. Tie U.S. engagement, investment, maybe trade benefits, to India adopting clearer, fairer, less corrupt business practices. Leverage their desire for partnership. Third, incentivize reforms through strategic, conditional investment. Don't just give aid blindly. Tie U.S. financial or tech support to specific, measurable reforms within India that address these dysfunctions. Ensure U.S. resources drive positive change, not prop up a flawed system.
Okay. Demand fairness, link partnership to transparency, use conditional investment.
What else? And fourth, maybe most powerfully, position American companies as allies of India's working middle, not its political elite. U.S. businesses in India should operate with the highest standards: transparency, fairness, quality, ethics. This appeals directly to frustrated Indian citizens tired of cronyism. This whole approach recognizes that India's weakness isn't just economic, it's structural. True, lasting alliances, especially ones serving U.S. interests, need to be built on truth, fairness, and mutual respect, not optics, slogans, or one-sided benefits where the U.S. gets the short end.
This leads us to a really audacious proposal in the sources, a game changer. It flips the script entirely. While India pushes Make in India, asking Apple and others to manufacture there.
Right.
The U.S. counters with something radical, startup in Delaware. It's a direct challenge almost, a strategy to beat India at its own game by inviting its smartest, most ambitious entrepreneurs to leave the chaos behind and build their businesses here in America. And the core message, it's explicit. USA loves successful Indians. USA awards talent. USA respects success.
It's definitely bold. Visionary, perhaps. And it's rooted in understanding why talent moves. The sources argue, very bluntly, that despite India's startup hype, the smartest Indians still leave when they can, and why? For concrete reasons. They seek genuine ease of doing business, clear, predictable laws, real freedom of speech without fear, protection from political harassment. They want results, not rituals. They want a system that rewards merit, not connections.
And the U.S. offers that.
Well, states like Delaware, Wyoming, Texas, Florida, they're highlighted as offering these things in abundance. They're magnets for serious builders.
Okay, let's drill down. Why Delaware specifically, or these other states? What makes them the opposite of the Indian experience we just discussed?
Delaware is a prime example, often called the U.S. corporate capital. Why? Zero corporate income tax for companies not physically operating in the state. Huge draw for global digital businesses. It has a world-class legal system specifically for corporate structures. Clarity, predictability, legal protection often missing in India. Incorporation is fast, simple, transparent, no bribes, no babu red tape. That babu red tape is shorthand for the bureaucratic nightmare in India.
Right, the inefficiency and corruption.
Exactly. In these U.S. states, you get clear rules, no political interference, no arbitrary tax raids. Plus, you get immediate access to global banking, dollar accounts, sophisticated payment systems like Stripe, PayPal essential for scaling globally, access to Amazon for e-commerce, AngelList for investment. It's a system that fundamentally respects entrepreneurship, privacy, and profitability. That's the magnet.
And building on that, there's this specific proposal, the Trump Gold Card for global founders. What's that about?
It's envisioned as a strategic, fast-track visa and tax incentive program, tailored for high-potential Indian entrepreneurs. Who's the target? People already exporting to the U.S., people building scalable, digital, or IP-heavy businesses, and crucially, people who want to incorporate in the U.S. and pay taxes where they feel respected and secure. It's targeted talent recruitment.
Sounds amazing for the entrepreneurs. But what's in it for the United States? What are the benefits for America?
Huge benefits. A real win-win. First, direct economic impact. It brings dollar revenue and significant tax payments into the U.S. from successful global entrepreneurs. Second, it attracts high-quality founders, many already frustrated with India, as we discussed. So the U.S. strategically gets top talent that might otherwise go elsewhere, Dubai, Singapore, or just be stifled.
Intercepting talent, basically.
In a way, yes. Third, it strengthens U.S.-India people-to-people ties at a grassroots level, builds connections between innovators and the American ecosystem, potentially bypassing government-level friction, creates deeper bonds. Fourth, it sends a powerful global message. America rewards talent and free enterprise, not just for its own citizens, but for the world's best, enhances its reputation as the place for innovation.
Okay, direct revenue, talent attraction, stronger ties, global image.
Fifth, strategically, supporting Indian innovation helps undermine China's manufacturing and digital hegemony, creates a competitive counterweight, diversifies tech leadership. And finally, maybe the biggest long-term win. It adds real weight to the idea of America as the global headquarters of entrepreneurship, cements its leadership through a continuous influx of fresh, ambitious global talent.
So it's about integrating this talent to boost the U.S. economy and standing. But why would Indian founders, many already successful there, actually want this gold card? What's the reality pushing them out?
The sources are brutally honest, because many of India's best and brightest are simply not free. The reality for even a successful Indian entrepreneur can be incredibly precarious. For example, speak up against government policy, even constructively. You risk immediate tax raids, sudden license blocks, crippling your business, or orchestrated media trials to destroy your reputation, constant fear of arbitrary targeting.
Success itself can be a risk.
Exactly. Become too successful, gain too much wealth or influence. You might be seen as a threat to political power, not an asset. That's terrifying if you want to build something big. Try to operate honestly, follow all the rules. You'll likely drown in GST notices, complex tax demands, endless labor inspections, pervasive municipal corruption. Diverts focus from innovation to just surviving bureaucracy.
And going global.
Huge hurdles. RBI restrictions, LRS caps, limiting money movement, suspicious audits make scaling internationally incredibly difficult, friction-filled.
Can you give some examples, maybe names the sources mentioned? It makes it more concrete.
Sure. The sources point to figures like Kiran Mazumdar-Shah of Biocon, globally respected but reportedly faced trolling and scrutiny after speaking critically on policy. Ronnie Screwvala, media and ed tech pioneer, known for honest commentary but kept at arm's length politically. Vijay Shekhar Sharma of Paytm, once a fintech star, faced huge regulatory and media attacks post-IPO. Baiju Ravindran of Baiju's, the edtech unicorn, now a cautionary tale due to overregulation, media trials, tax scrutiny, his empire dismantled.
Wow. Big names.
And others. Naresh Goyal of Jet Airways faced huge troubles. Rahul Bajaj, the late industrialist known for blunt criticism. Ashner Grover of Fardbay, ousted amid controversy and media frenzy. The sources stress, these are not criminals, these are builders, people who created wealth, jobs, innovation, and builders deserve freedom, trust, and a stable platform to grow. It highlights the immense pressure, the lack of stability, pushing even top innovators to look elsewhere.
That's a powerful quote. Makes the gold card sound less like an incentive, more like an escape hatch. So the specifics, what exactly does this Trump gold card offer?
It's designed as a comprehensive package. First, a fast-tracked 10-year founder visa, long-term residency, stability to operate. Second, incorporation support in business-friendly states like Delaware, Texas, Florida, Wyoming, helps setting up the legal entity. Crucially, immediate U.S. bank account and tax identity setup, removes a major barrier, integrates them financially, direct access to U.S.-based credit and payment systems, Stripe, PayPal, also investment platforms like AngelList, vital for scaling, fundraising.
So practical setup support. What else?
Also, access to mentorship and investor network hubs curated by top accelerators, connects them to the U.S. startup ecosystem, offers support, and finally, a clear path to permanent residency tied to measurable economic contributions, revenue, U.S. jobs created, or significant U.S. tax paid. This ensures it's reciprocal. Benefits tied to tangible economic impact for the U.S. aligns everyone's interests.
Sounds incredibly well thought out. The sources use this striking phrase, 80% discount. What does that mean? It's not literal cash back, right?
No, not literal cash. It's a metaphor. It means this isn't a handout. It's a strategic investment by the U.S. in human capital, an investment with potentially huge returns. The idea is India has this vast pool of talent, over 100 unicorn founders, thousands of high net worth entrepreneurs, millions of ambitious exporters and tech creators. Many are overtaxed, overregulated, face corruption, targeting. They have capital, ideas, ambition, but lack the freedom and stability to grow safely in India.
They're already looking to leave.
Many are. Looking at Dubai, Singapore, London, but many would prefer the U.S. if it truly felt welcoming and offered a clearer path. So the 80% discount means the U.S. can acquire this amazing talent and future tax revenue at a discounted opportunity cost. Because these people are already motivated to leave their current situation. The U.S. just needs to extend the invitation. Skip the chaos. Build with us. Pay taxes where you're respected, where success is celebrated, not targeted. Capture value that's already looking for an exit.
A compelling pitch. What are the actual criteria to qualify? How does the U.S. ensure it gets the right talent?
The criteria are clear and rigorous. Designed to attract high-impact individuals. Applicants need companies generating over 10 crore, about $1.2 million U.S. in revenue, or equivalent funding. Shows proven scale. Must have no criminal or tax evasion history, emphasizes integrity. Their business needs to be export-based, tech-enabled, or IP-driven, aligns with U.S. growth sectors. They must be explicitly willing to incorporate and pay tax in the U.S. shows commitment. And finally, they should not be on government subsidies in India. Targets independent, self-made successes, not products of cronyism. Ensures they're genuine wealth creators likely to contribute significantly.
Okay, beyond the business side, what else makes this gold card so appealing to these wealthy, ambitious Indians? They feel like it offers something more fundamental.
Oh, absolutely. It's about freedom, protection, quality of life, often lacking back home despite their success. First, no harassment from local tax authorities, huge relief. Focus on building, not defending against arbitrary audits. Second, genuine freedom of expression. Speak your mind, critique policy constructively without fear of backlash, raids, social ostracization. Powerful draw for those feeling silenced.
Security and predictability, too.
Definitely. Global credibility, stronger banking, more predictable legal systems. Essential for global business, personal peace of mind, asset security, protection from domestic political vendettas, real security from arbitrary targeting, and fundamentally the ability to live, operate, and thrive in a truly capitalist democracy, where merit is rewarded, rules are clear, fair play expected, aligns with their entrepreneurial spirit.
And the sources frame this as Trump's signature move, a limited-time golden window. Why the urgency, the exclusivity?
Strategy. Amplify impact, create immediate urgency, a sense of exclusivity, make it high profile. Could be part of a broader Make America the Headquarters of Innovation initiative. Signals a new era. A 90-day application period creates that limited time window. Encourages immediate action, generates buzz, prevents delay. The sources even suggest a potential Trump quote. "We gave American companies the freedom to grow. Now it's time to give the world's smartest builders a chance to do the same in America." Frames it as extending a successful philosophy.
And the target audience for this window?
Very specific high-value groups, unicorn founders, top Amazon exporters, established manufacturers from industrial hubs like Ludhiana, Surat, Rajkot, Coimbatore, innovative SaaS founders from Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, exactly the productive, high-value people who'd benefit most and contribute most to the U.S.
Okay, let's unpack this grand vision one last time. This is a fundamental shift. India asks Apple to make in India. America responds by asking India's brightest, most frustrated entrepreneurs to incorporate in America. It redefines economic diplomacy.
It really does. The grand vision. Indian entrepreneurs empowered to build factories in Texas, run SaaS platforms from Miami, sell D2C brands from Delaware, serve clients globally, pay taxes in the U.S. where they're valued. It's framed as a clear win for the U.S., attracting talent, capital, fueling growth, and an equally big win for Indian entrepreneurs, gaining freedom, stability, opportunity, sends a powerful global message. America doesn't just talk about freedom, it lets you build with it, a tangible demonstration of American values.
And there's that very direct, raw call out in the sources. It's time India stops bullshitting the world and its own people. Extremely blunt.
It is. Reflects the deep frustration outlined. The sources use that language, bullshitting the world, to describe the huge gap between rhetoric and reality. They argue India has played a double game for too long, preaching free markets abroad, enforcing archaic rules, choking entrepreneurs at home, talking innovation while throttling innovators, demanding global respect while disrespecting its own achievers. The argument continues. While India continues to pamper its non-tax-paying vote banks, flood the streets with subsidies, and punish productivity with red tape and surveillance, the U.S. Gold Card offers a clear escape for truly successful Indians. The builders, creators, taxpayers tired of being trapped in a system that extracts, not empowers, an offer of liberation.
So ultimately, the Gold Card is the founder's freedom. Now, what does that mean in the deepest sense for those who take it?
Liberation. From a broken system to one valuing their talent. With the Gold Card, they can incorporate globally, scale freely, pay taxes in a system that genuinely respects wealth creation, rewards ingenuity, doesn't punish it. They could potentially become U.S. citizens, hold multiple passports, travel the world without restriction, unparalleled global mobility, dignity, access international products, services, investment opportunities without begging the RBI for approval. Removes a huge bottleneck. Crucially, allows them to escape the punishment of merit and live in dignity as global citizens, rewarded for success, not targeted, and maybe most profoundly, give their children a future unshackled by caste, corruption, or chaos. The message is stark. The smart ones, the real builders, should now choose freedom over flattery and liberty over loyalty to a broken system. The U.S. effectively invites the world's most punished winners and lets them finally win free.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? This deep dive really shows that strategic thinking isn't just governments talking to governments. It's about unlocking human potential, aligning national interests with individual aspirations. The idea of a nation like the U.S. deliberately attracting talent and capital by highlighting its core values, freedom, opportunity, rule of law, especially contrasted with another nation's internal struggles. Well, it presents a truly compelling, maybe revolutionary alternative for global leadership.
And this raises a final, perhaps provocative question for you to think about. If a nation's real strength isn't just GDP or military power, but its ability to foster innovation, reward merit, protect its productive citizens from arbitrary power, what does this proposed U.S. strategy really imply about the future of global talent flows? About the shifting landscape of influence. And if we connect this to the even bigger picture, think about how this U.S. approach doesn't just attract talent. It might potentially incentivize other nations, India included, to seriously confront their own systemic issues, their internal contradictions, or risk losing their best and brightest to more open, meritocratic systems. What might those ripple effects be globally in the decades ahead?